This is the Erasing Shame podcast. I'm one of the co-hosts, DJ Chuang, and I'm thrilled that you could join us here today as we are recording this live with my special friend, author of a brand new book, Dim Sum and Faith: How Our Stories Form Our Souls. Jenn Suen Chen, welcome to the Erasing Shame podcast.
Thank you so much, DJ.
I'm thrilled to celebrate this special day with you as it is book launch day for your brand new book. How do you feel?
Yes. Um, I feel a great deal of peace at this moment. I do. Check back with me at
That's
lunch.
great. How long was this process as you wrote this book?
I'd say in total, from beginning to write, it's probably been about 4 years.
Wow. Well, we're
Yeah.
going to take a few minutes or about half an hour to have a conversation about the book, but more about the context of the book because we want people to buy and read the book. And I'm
Mm,
very thankful that InterVarsity Press, which is the publisher, has made one of the chapters, probably the first chapter, free at the
mhm,
IVP website.
mhm, mhm,
And we'll add a link in the show notes at erasingshame.com as well as on this video so you can get that chapter to pre-read the book, and then that'll help you see how valuable this book is. So
mhm,
I want to unpack the subtitle as we get into talking about how this book came about. So I went to graduate school and studied theology and read Christian books over the years. And I either got the impression or was taught, or both, that our soul was purely spiritual
mm,
and didn't have anything to do with my backstory or cultural background and what I went through in life because our focus was on God and on
mm,
Jesus.
mhm,
But your book is bringing together how
mm.
our stories form our souls. How would you respond to that idea that spirituality is just disconnected from our story?
Yeah, that's a really good question, DJ. Since you gave it to me, I've been thinking about that a lot. Like, growing up, I'd probably agree with my upbringing as well, that somehow I, if I just learned more, then I would know how to follow God better.
Mm,
If I just served or if I just did, essentially. But I had to do a lot. I needed to read my Bible and needed to pray. And there are the disciplines that are really important. But I think what was missing, I think, in my maybe Christian upbringing is this idea that we are shaped by our experiences
mm.
more than we realize, and that we are all really different.
It seems our soul is just this immaterial thing
Mhm.
that if we do the right things, that our spiritual lives will be okay. But yet,
Mm.
you're introducing and unpacking this idea, our story matters.
Yeah.
And it shapes and forms our soul. Can you
Mhm.
describe how that works?
Yeah. I think in short, we're shaped by our experiences.
Hmm.
Our stories shape who we are. It shapes our, we don't, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to dig into that. But I think just as I've done my own work and then come alongside so many people, globally, I think, oh wow, our context, the stories that we were born into, the story that was being told for us even before we were born, the story we came into, and the story that was continuously being told, and then we had agency to tell our story, and we do now. But I think
Hmm.
all of that impacts our spirituality, how we come to know Jesus, how we come to know
Mm.
God as our Father, how we come to experience love, and how a lot of us still stay very much in our minds,
Hmm.
in our knowledge of God. But when we talk about experiencing deep love and His kindness and His character, I think some of the people that I've walked alongside, and even at seasons of my life, it has felt kind of disconnected. Knowledge and experience hasn't felt very integrated. So I think story work is important, I think, to bring together a greater integration of our faith and healing that is possible through Jesus.
Well, let's explore a bit of your own story. When in your life did you come to this realization that your personal history made a difference in your spiritual life? Because you went through a similar journey going through seminary
Mhm.
and theological training, and we had been trained with a lot of book knowledge. We
Yeah.
are people of the book in the Bible,
Mhm.
and the Bible does have a lot of stories, but I think in the way many of us were taught, it was the theology and knowing the right things and doing the right things. And there wasn't much exploration of our story. So when did that become a more and more important part in your own life?
I think that, I write about this in the book. I think it was the undoing season of my life.
Mm,
And maybe it wasn't the first undoing, but I think a real hitting of the wall. And we were in ministry and had made a big move to Asia. And I was scared I wouldn't have what it took to do that season of my life. And I don't think I've ever felt that afraid that I wouldn't have what was needed, the stamina, the energy,
mhm,
the emotional resilience that was needed. And I think and this is close to 28 years ago, that I just began, as things just started to crumble. And it
mm,
called for a greater honesty of just ways I put my trust even in my own ability to just press, just keep carrying on, keep doing what I know to do. That's what I've been told. Just keep going
mhm. Yeah.
and the feelings will come. That's what I was told. Just do, and then love for God will come. And I think there's something in there that's okay, but that served me for a time. But I think there was a hitting of the wall, and I write about
Mhm,
that. And I'm not the first person. Obviously, many have written about the dark night of the soul and
mm,
seasons of our life of undoing. But I think, yeah, I realized, oh, I'd been told, I'd been told if I work hard for God that it would end up in something. And I realized my own perfection, expectations of myself, even my growing up as a pastor's kid. I mean, there's just so many pieces that just needed untangling. And by God's grace, and I think I just began to look for like books, like, is there something to help me kind of do this work? And it really honestly came through people. There's a
mm,
little bit of what I read, but a lot of it was just organic, finding people that I saw something in them that was authentic and real. And I was like, I want what you have. I don't know what it is, but can you tell me
mhm.
how you got there? And so it's been these years, and I think the book is just kind of the culmination of maybe writing some of that out.
Oh, that's so good. And I'm going to share the uh, content, table of contents, so people can get a framework of what you described. So there's four parts to how story shapes our soul, which is shaping, undoing, awakening, and remaking. And I recall you were on the Erasing Shame podcast previously, and we can add a link in the show notes as you were in process of writing this book.
Hmm.
So we'll just refer people to that. And
Okay.
then it's become, published and polished and available for people to read at their own leisure instead of getting it through a digital device. But multimedia, right?
That's
So
right.
there's been a lot more attention these days about spiritual formation, and I've
Mm,
seen some of your posts as you're talking about the book that this is spiritual formation for Asian Americans. Can you
mm,
comment on why or how we're becoming more aware about this thing called spiritual formation in our
mm.
time and generation? Because 30 years ago, I didn't really hear much about it.
Yeah, I would agree, DJ. I think really we've always been talking about spiritual formation, maybe perhaps without the word. So really, I think when we talk about our transformation as the promise that God will transform and conform us to himself. And so we're in this process of being changed as followers of Christ. But I think the spiritual formation journey just places it within this, like it is a journey. It's not just, and it's not just linear in the sense of like point A to point B or prescriptive, that we don't all pass through the same waypoints. I think there's similar pieces of our stories and there's familiar maybe language that we might use. But I think it is cyclical in nature. And I think this growth piece as we head towards heaven is really what we're talking about, how God is transforming us, making us more like him.
Mm,
So I
mhm,
think when I talk about it as I think in all the books that I read, many of them have just been a very individual spiritual formation journey, me and God. But I
mhm,
think as an Asian American, I've always been translating, from the books I read to like my context. Like, okay, that's not exactly how I grew up, but I can translate. I'm good at that.
mhm,
But I think as I was starting to write, I was like, but it is not just us and God, it's us and one another. There's over 100 references in the New Testament that refer to the one another.
mhm,
Some of them are imperatives of how we are to live in relationship with one another, and a lot of it is encouragement of our one anothering.
mhm,
And I thought, I have grown because I've watched you grow. And my faith has been, and everyone would say, yes, of course. But I think as Asian Americans coming from a collective culture that really values the elders, that values the intergenerational spaces, that values it's messy, it's awkward, it's imperfect, but I get to learn and grow when I'm around the table. And I think that's where I
mhm,
feel like the table, like this invitation, but this table it's not a stagnant state. It's like this table is ever expanding. There's always room
mhm,
at this table and
mhm.
for us. And so I think that there is, yes, our relationship with God. But I think especially as an Asian American, I think we can understand when we talk about this together. And the together might feel complicated too, a little bit complicated and nuanced because it's not always been lovely to have everybody in your business or to have everybody know what's going on with you. But in the most beautiful way, I think God can redeem those parts and use it for his glory. I think we're best when we're doing this spiritual formation journey together.
Very good. And if I can sort through this, so the um the invitation to the dim sum table, we're gonna uh, take a few minutes and talk about that. And also, I want to invite our viewers to type in the chat window if you have some comments, encouragement for Jen as she releases this book today. Today is book launch day for Dim Sum and Faith, How Stories Shape Our Soul. And a lot of our Christian education is more around a classroom
Mm,
where we get information and education about Bible stories and Bible knowledge.
mhm.
And what you're inviting us into is come around a table, share our stories, and also understand and learn how those stories shape us together. So, two things. One, what is the common thread you discovered in being Asian Americans? Because it's such a diverse population. And
Oh,
I'm Chinese
completely.
American. I think you're Chinese American.
Yeah.
And we're just one of 30 or 40 or 50 different kinds of Asians.
Yeah. The common thread. I don't know. I think that we're just human. I think we're human. Um, yeah, we're born into the world looking for love. And I
Mm,
think, yeah, there is no singular Asian American experience as we know. Even as a Hong Kong Chinese American, my husband's family's from Taiwan. Like even the differences, history impacts, our families, our heritage. And when we, even the migration story, and I reference it lightly, it's so complicated and packed with grief.
Mm,
So I think it's just acknowledging that. I think it's just acknowledging that it's so much more than what we see. When we show up on a Sunday morning and we raise our hands in worship, I think it's so beautiful. And yet I know everyone is carrying something. And I think my heart has just cried for something to be, not just in my book, but as I'm watching God do this across, yeah, the Asian American community and beyond. But I think we're just trying to find words maybe that
mhm,
help articulate the stories, articulate the journey, and maybe that we are can get better at seeing each other um, and that my hope is for our kids and grandkids that there will be more language around their stories
mhm.
because it's needed. Yeah.
Well, thank you. This is a very personal book because you share many personal stories in your own spiritual journey so that we can
Mm,
begin to see what it looks like to see God at work in shaping
mm,
our lives.
mm,
Now, in many of the churches that people go to, perhaps some in our audience, and there are also people who listen and watch the Erasing Shame podcast that are just beginning to explore Christianity and are not part of our faith tradition.
mhm,
What could a church leader or church context do to make room for more of these stories and how they shape our soul?
mm. Oh, that's such a good question. And that's just really my heart. Um,
Hmm.
I think we just have to start trying. I don't know that it's a program that we can
Mm,
establish. I think it's organic. I think, but I think creating spaces for stories to be shared and maybe just the recognition that we don't all experience life in the same way. And we're
hmm,
all carrying a lot more than what we present, right? We show up and we
hmm.
show up, we present, I'm clean and I'm capable and I'm educated or whatever it is that we show up in. But there's just so much more. And I think for churches, ministry leaders, even in marketplace spaces, I think creating spaces for people to be heard. Our stories beg to be told.
Mm,
But in order for them to be told, we need someone to listen to them.
hmm.
And I think that there's this healing. I think we can do this work without even, I think professional training is important and we need professionals in a space. But I think as a church, we can be a healing community for people. I think as people come in, we're not trying to fix people. We let the Lord
Hmm.
walk us through the healing and all that's needed. But I think we show up for one another.
Well,
And
we have a
I
word of
think,
encouragement
yeah,
from Tony. Congrats, Jen. So grateful that you're sharing with us what God has taught you and how he has and continues to shape you and us.
thank you, Tony.
Yeah, and here's a question that I get from pastors as I share things is, what does this look like practically? How does a church create space?
Mm,
And I think the answer is right here in the title of your book. Let's have dim sum and talk about our lives with one another and
mm,
how we see God working in it, or just reviewing our story and then begin to learn how to see God in the midst of it.
yeah. Friends of ours just at different churches have said they're going to start a book club and at church
Mm,
just to read the book together. I would encourage groups to do this together. There's enough questions at the end and hopefully are spacious enough to be able to leave room, not just for pat answers, But sometimes we just need to hold the question
Mm,
and bring it before God and ask Him, yeah, what He might show us.
that's wonderful. Well, thank you for putting so much thought and energy and prayer and your own story out there for people to read and hear about. I'd imagine that's kind of a vulnerable thing to do.
A little bit. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think that's part of why we hold back our stories because
Mhm.
um, it is a act of faith and courage, and we don't want to just share it with everybody all the time.
Mhm.
We want to
Mhm.
use wise vulnerability and
Yes.
share it with people that will listen
Mhm.
empathetically and non-judgmental.
Mhm.
And as we hear one another's story and see God at work in it, it actually literally changes our neurobiology.
It does. It does. And to that, I would say, I feel people have said, you're super vulnerable. And part of me is like, oh, you ain't seen that thing yet. But I would say it's part of, I think, just it was looking for words for what I feel is a really just ordinary human experience in many ways. Like, I think the emotions, the transition, the crises, the pain, the grief, all of us have it in
Mm,
our lives. They're ingredients of our lives, and we've experienced different ways, but I think we're looking for language. And so my prayer is that people won't remember my stories, but that at the end will just be like, oh, I'm so curious about mine. And I'm so curious about my kids or my spouse or my
mhm,
community stories. And
mhm.
I want to listen. Yeah.
That's so good. So, and this is something that we've been doing here at Erasing Shame. We invite people that are just average people, not all the experts. And we want to create space for people to share their stories of erasing
Hmm.
shame and how
Hmm.
they're able to experience healing and wholeness and goodness in
Hmm.
life. And we've had quite the journey since 2018. So I'm so glad you're
So
a
good.
part of it. And several times you described how this story of life in each one of us is a human experience.
Mm.
So take a moment to describe how your faith and your spirituality with Jesus Christ has made such a difference in your life for those who are not on this Christian journey.
Mm. I think knowing Jesus has made the difference. I can't even imagine not knowing him. Um, I think being able to, like, God is a factual knowing of us, like in Psalm 139, which is the psalm that is the framework for this book,
Mm,
that he knows us factually, but that he also, for those of us in relationship with him, has this relational knowledge of us. And that's the surety, and that's the safety, and that's the protection, and that's the psalmist says, where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your
mhm,
presence? I think, in life, there's so many things that come at us all the time. And God has been proven to be um, the perfect friend. And I've experienced his presence by way of peace, transformation. I think about our marriage, and
mhm.
my husband and I. It's actually our 30th anniversary today.
Hey, congratulations on that too. On book launch
So it just
day.
happened to be on this
Uh-huh.
day, and that IVP picked for book launch. But I think to have a marriage that is rich with in love and growth, and that change is possible, that we can become more spacious, um, inviting, gracious people. I think that change cannot happen by myself. We just can't do it by ourselves. So I just would say following Jesus has been a ride,
Mm,
as life has been. But I would say I cannot imagine my life without him.
Mm, so good. Thank you. Now, a book typically has a word limit, so there might be some other things you wish you had space to share
Hmm.
or unpack. Can you give us a little insight? If you had room for a bonus chapter, what would you say?
Oh, that's all been thrown into what people are saying book two, and I think I don't know. We'll see. Um, I don't I don't know if I have words for that yet, DJ, but
Mm,
I think that as I am even I had a chance to preach last weekend and
mhm,
I was studying this passage again and more insight was coming and there was part of me that was like, oh, I wish I could have put that in there, but I think that's just what it is, right? Life is just ever unfolding and we're learning and
mm.
growing and so yeah, we'll see. I don't know. We'll
Well,
see what emerges in the coming days.
well, thank you for inviting us into a bit of your life through the book, and you're very active on social media as well. You have a website. So mention those handles for those that are listening on the go, and then they can remember to reach out to you and connect.
Yeah. So just website, Instagram, same as Jenn Suen Chen, same as on the book. Um, and you can find me there.
Thank
Yes.
you, Jen, for joining us on the Erasing Shame podcast. Again, the show notes will be at erasingshame.com. We'll add the links so you can connect personally with Jenn Suen and check out the book at InterVarsity Press. You can get a free chapter, and it's available everywhere you can find books. Blessing to you,
Thanks
Jen.
so much,
Thank you for being with us.
DJ.
And thank
Thank
you, live
you.
audience, for being with us too. We're going to sign off and say goodbye.